Community Fireside Chat. We've got a good show planned out for you today. Quickly, as an agenda, we've got some Pomelo topics. We'll be talking about the Mandel 3.1 release candidate, of course. We'll talk a bit about Yield Plus, Brandon at Consensus, see how that went. And then we've got a few other quick stories to mention, such as the ENF China test election, Eve getting quote tweeted by Charles Hoskinson. We got some EVM Twitter spaces coming up, and a Chinese EOS Network Foundation Chinese event. Have you guys jump in the conversation at any time if you want to say hi to the community, if you want to ask a question to someone or bring up a topic of discussion. That's always welcome. Off with some light Pomelo news. So we mentioned last week the retrospective on season 2 was published. If you haven't checked that out, I encourage you to do so on our Medium channel. We also published a survey in that article where we're asking feedback from everyone who participated in season 2, whether you were a contributor or a grant creator. We invite you to fill out the survey. I'm going to share the link in the stream chat right now as well, and we just tweeted about it as well. So if you want to give that a retweet, I'll share the link for the tweet as well. And yeah, it's a really quick survey. Should not take more than like 2 minutes to fill out. We just kind of want to know, how satisfied you are with Pomelo season 2, what you think went well, where you think we can improve, and yeah, filling out this survey is a way to helping public goods on EOS. So I encourage everyone to do that real quick. And also wanted to let you guys know that Pomelo team is working on the season 3 kickoff article. So you should be seeing that published within the next week. And we'll be announcing the official dates for application and grants to open and close. We'll be announcing also the season 3 NFT series that is going to be released leading up to the launch of Pomelo season 3. And so you can, stay tuned on the Pomelo channels, on the Pomelo Twitter for that article coming up soon. And we've got some permission issues with the survey. All right, we'll fix that actually. Real quick, is Daniel in the chat right now? Daniel is not. I'll send him a quick message. But yeah, thank you, Jesse, for getting in there. All right. If anyone has anything to share about Pomelo or some thoughts, feel free to jump in, of course. And we're going to play a bit of elevator music. Unless we got someone jumping in on the mic. Okay, see a lot of people registering for the pop tokens. That's great. Are we chatting? Of course, it's the 4-year anniversary of EOS. We saw a lot of nice tweets today and yesterday highlighting that fact. And we also got the 3.0 release candidate. So this is the latest update to the EOSIO software. And of course, the first such update that was led by the community. Definitely worth spamming some sound effects for that. So I do see we have a few technically knowledgeable people in the chat. At this point, yeah, I'd like to invite you guys to jump in, share your thoughts on what you think this release candidate brings, some of the features, and kind of the greater symbolic value of this release. If anyone wants to jump in. I think I'm gonna have to do like I did last week and specifically call out people. So here we go. Arhag, Matthew, Darwin. I know you guys worked on this this release. I'd love it if you guys jump in here and share a few thoughts. Or perhaps Zach wants to jump in.
I can share some thoughts. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
Welcome to
great.
the Fireside Chat.
Hi. Thanks. Good to be here. Yeah, so this is, we just released yesterday 3.1.0 RC1. This is the first release candidate of the, This is the first release candidate of the 3.1 series. And this is a special series because it's the first, community-led release of the EOSIO code. And this, so Mandel, I guess, is the name being used for the 3.1 release series. The code base is still EOSIO, although that's in the process of being rebranded. But just want to make that clear. And then, so pretty exciting release in my opinion because, well, for two reasons. One because this is again like the first community-led release that separates away from the prior EOSI releases from Block 1. And then also just a lot of cool technical things in here as well. So the release notes kind of go into detail, but there are some protocol changes and then a bunch of other features as well that are outside of the protocol. So at the protocol level, we have what's mostly interesting there are the crypto primitives protocol feature, which introduce a bunch of new host functions that enable accelerating certain cryptographic functions. In particular, there's modular exponentiation. There's the support for the alt BN128 elliptic curve, which can enable implementations that verify ZK snarks. And there's some extra hash functions and a few other things. And actually, all of these were all these serve to accelerate the implementation of precompiles in the EVM. So that's one of the motivations for getting this in as well. And then as far as so that was the protocol. There's also a get block number, but that was mostly the protocol stuff. But then there's a lot of interesting new features in this release as well. A few different new API endpoints related to transaction lifecycle stuff or just transaction management stuff. So there's a new send transaction API, send transaction 2. And this has some improvements over the previous version. In particular, it returns a transaction trace on failure. So the previous one would return just the exception, but not the transaction trace. So you wouldn't actually, the client would not be able to know where things went wrong, like which action actually failed, get the context of where it failed in the transaction. If you have a more sophisticated transaction, it'd be very helpful to have the full trace. So calling this endpoint to check to see whether the transaction actually failed on that API node or not. There's also an automatic retry capability that the caller can request as part of the it's like a Boolean there, which will automatically, Nodius will automatically try to send it again in case it did not get included in the block. There's related to that is kind of tracking the life cycle of whether transaction has gone to the block yet or not, or it's become irreversible. And so there's a new endpoint to track the status, the finality status of a transaction. You can look up by ID. And then finally, a new endpoint to compute the costs of a transaction, knowing that it won't be included, just to be able to estimate like the CPU costs for resource billing, for example, solutions like a resource provider might find this very handy. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. There's also a pruning feature for block log and ship or state history plugin logs, so that you can configure this to hold a certain number of blocks, and it'll automatically prune the old entries so that you can save disk space. It uses a mechanism to actually reduce the disk space, even though if you look on the file size, it's a sparse file. So if you look at the file size, it may not seem like it's changing. It's like growing in file size, but it's actually kind of removing blocks of data from disk to actually save space. So I think there's probably improvements that'll come along with that feature in the future, probably. But as it is right now, it can enable operators to reduce their disk usage. if they only care to maintain, the last n blocks, whatever that number is. Yeah, I think that's pretty much covers it. Again, there's a few other details there that you can read through in the release notes.
Great, thank you for that detailed explanation. I think I understood most of that, even though I definitely did not understand all of that. How long have the people working on this been working on getting Mandel 3.0 ready like it is at this point? If that question makes sense.
It does make sense. So when I joined ENF, and along with Matt also here on this call, and Bucky, this is back in April, we some of these functions were already in progress, particularly the transaction lifecycle things. That was primarily led by OCI. And so it was. So yeah, actually, I don't know if Zach has more information here, but regarding that history prior to that point. But some of those features started before then, and then a lot of this has been happening since basically in the last 2 months, wrapping up these remaining features.
Yeah, so it was pretty public that the Fractal team with Dan Larimer and Todd and everyone, they released the first version of Mandel, and there wasn't really much development work between then and when Arhag, Bucky, and Matt joined. So Dan handed it off sometime late February or early April, and then at that point, the ENF engineers and OCI engineers kind of took over. So I would say about the same timeline that Arhag said, early April until yesterday.
To kind of add to that, these ideas all came about during the creation of the API Plus blue paper. So this was one of the things we saw being thought about back then, and solutions starting to be, iterated on, and then it really started happening as soon as OCI was contracted to make it all happen. And a lot of this all stemmed from whether it was in fall or winter, I don't remember, but when a lot of the transactions were disappearing, we needed solutions in place for when odd network events like this were occurring, that we had more robust tools to stop it. So kind of the transaction lifecycle was a really deep focus at that point. And the blue paper kind of put some ideas out there. We talked with OCI about this stuff. They took on the contract, negotiated with ENF, and now we're here today, and the ENF team themselves are helping with it. And this first release is really exciting.
We've been meeting every week for 19 weeks now to plan the coordination to do the upgrade. But yeah, I think a lot of the work started well before then.
I'm going to give you guys another round of applause for this historic moment in the history of EOS. All right, thanks for those explanations, everyone. Those are going to make some great clips for us to clip out here of this Fireside Chat and share on social media in the coming days. That's great. Anyone else have other thoughts they'd want to share about this upcoming upgrade? Feel free to jump in here. And thank you to Stephane Bisson for sharing the link to the release notes in GitHub in the voice chat there. That's great.
I guess kind of a little forward looking on all of this stuff. While the APIs are coming, the next step in a lot of this is figuring out how the clients utilize them best. So the wallet SDK that we've been calling it, even though it's more of a client SDK, that will be developed over the coming months, hopefully, is going to lead into how application developers really utilize these features and build more reliable applications. So, I mean, it's been probably 6 months or whatever that has led up to this point where we have a release candidate. And then we probably have like I don't know, 3 to 6 months more of progress that's going to be happening on this to create a really reliable ecosystem that kind of gets rid of a lot of the problems that we saw for the past year or two.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. So I saw on Twitter, someone asked, isn't this the thing that was supposed to come out in September, which is the Mandel consensus upgrade? So I think it's important to say this is the release candidate 1. So Matthew Darwin did a quoted retweets immediately after Eve announced the candidate was published right before midnight East Coast time to ensure that it happened on the anniversary of the mainnet launch. It was quite important. So I want to just shout out all of the ENF engineers who were working till the very last minute to make sure that we got this out on the anniversary. And I'm happy that we're able to talk about it today. But just to be clear, the next steps are, so going back to Matthew, he posted a screenshot that it was deployed to Jungle pretty much immediately. As soon as it was released, it was deployed to Jungle. And then the next steps are essentially to make sure it's stable, to test it. But as far as I understand, there won't be any major new features added to it. So this is the release candidate. This is essentially as close to what will be merged into the mainnet in late September for the Mandel consensus upgrade on September 23rd. So if any of that's incorrect, please correct me from the engineering side as far as what next steps are on the release candidate leading up to the consensus upgrade.
I believe we'll have several more RCs, but otherwise that's accurate. So just fixing things as we move along.
But correct in the sense of no new features?
No new features. Yeah, that's correct.
Correct.
Like and then that's just the general pattern we'll be following and have been following in the past too. But basically, the first RC cutoff is where we get all the major features. After that, it's all about bug fixing, stabilization, and things like that. We expect there to be multiple iterations of RCs before we get the final, first real production ready release. So you might see an RC2, maybe even RC3 before you see a 3.10 that's actually ready for use on mainnet. And then after that, there will be some amount of time needed to give enough people to upgrade their nodes, because whenever there's protocol changes, if you want to activate those protocol changes, that's a hard forking change. Some people get scared by that word. I just want to clarify what that means. So in the blockchain space, there's soft forking and hard forking. Hard forking is whenever there's a change to the protocol, which requires all the node operators to upgrade their binaries to continue syncing with the network. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a fork of the community or a fork of the token. And EOS has had many hard forks. You can actually go in Blocks.io and look up for example, look up all the protocol features and when they were activated if you want to see when those have happened. And no one's kind of noticed the difference. It's because they're non-contentious hard forks that are basically just upgrading the protocol. So this is expected to be no different. It's useful features that are being introduced, like I said, the cryptographic primitives. But because it is a hard forking feature, or really we can call it a consensus upgrade to distinguish it from the kind of negative connotations of hard forks. Because it's a consensus upgrade, there needs to be a little bit more time as well after the final 3.10 is available before we can activate on September 23rd, I think it is.
We're big on anniversaries around here, so it was important to get the Mandel RC out yesterday before midnight East Coast. But September 23rd is also a date of significance because it's actually the date of the most recent hard fork on EOS, and that happened on September 23rd, 2019. I don't have the version. It was the upgrade to EOSIO 1.8.
regarding the Pomelo survey that I encourage you guys to fill out that you couldn't before, the permissions have been fixed and it should be open now for anyone who wants to fill it out. And we appreciate if you participated in season 2 that you take 2 minutes and fill out the survey. Doing it while you're listening to the Fireside Chat, I think, is a great idea.
Happy birthday, EOS.
Happy birthday, EOS. Absolutely. That'll be our sign off for today at the end of the show, for those of you who make it.
Yeah, yesterday was the real birthday, so... What's up?
No, I was just wanted to mention a little protocol change for these Fireside Chats. So we have decided that we're going to keep hosting them on Discord only. So every week we'll be hosting our Fireside Chats on Discord. The ENF is working on hosting regular events on Twitter Spaces as well. So definitely we think, Twitter Spaces events are very helpful. And so we definitely want to keep having regular events there. But the Fireside Chat is more intimate with the community. We think that makes more sense to keep it here on Discord. And when you do join in on the audio on Discord, please state your name before you start talking so that it's easy for people listening on YouTube later on or on Twitter, or even just listening in without necessarily watching the Discord screen to know kind of who's talking. So, for example, we had Stephane Bisson here join in the conversation for the first time, I think, which is great to see. Good opportunity to just say your name when you jump in. Maybe the superstars like Zack and Eve and Aaron, maybe they don't have to, as we recognize their voices because they're kind of chiming in here every week pretty much. But for everyone else, I think it'd be a good idea to just get in the habit of saying your name when you jump in. So yeah, sorry for cutting you off there, Zack. You were talking more about the anniversary?
Yeah, it was just stupid. It was just a lot of people would post something or celebrate June 1st as the anniversary. But the only really thing of significance on June 1st is the date that the Block 1 ICO ended. The actual activation and launch of the mainnet happened on June 14th, which happened after several go, no-go calls. And anyone that was around for that was quite the time. And then even after the network launched, there was a period where the network was kind of live, but not really, because there needed to be a certain threshold of tokens voting for the initial Genesis BPs. So I was happy that it was acknowledged even before we made the late night post about the Mandel upgrade. I was happy to see that many in the community did acknowledge yesterday as the anniversary, because I didn't want to make a big deal out of it on June 1st when I saw people doing like the happy birthday GIFs and things like that. But that's all. It's a little nugget.
Yeah, and I just say happy birthday because it's the first time we're all together here on the Fireside Chat since that happened yesterday. So here we are.
Welcome, Brandon. How was your trip to Consensus?
Yeah, I'm supposed to say my name when I start talking. I'm going to say this is Lovejoy. Yeah, Consensus was great. I actually just gave a shout to Dan of OCI. Maybe he'll be able to jump on here in a bit. A lot of great teams there. The first people I met up with was the OCI team. Dan, Matt, Bob of OCI, some legendary developers there, and that was a great conversation and get to know them better and know that OCI is really pretty all in on EOS and very bullish on EOS, so that was good. EOS Rio got to hang out with. There was a lot of EOS presence actually at the event, worth mentioning. I know EOS didn't have an official presence. We didn't have a table or a conference room booked out, but I was pretty amazed at the number of places I went where there were a pretty substantial EOS crowd and just kind of saturating the event. And I mean, there were 17,500 plus people at Consensus in Austin, so it was a bit of a madhouse. But we all managed to find each other. Telos had a really good show in there. They're all hanging out and did some presentations. I ran into Torben of Rewired, that one, who works with Ross Dole, formerly of EOS Sphere. So another EOS OG. Gosh, so many good speakers. The atmosphere was really, I mean, I guess, because of the bear market, it had a certain effect, but I wouldn't say it was all negative. It was more like people were focused on building and less on shilling, which was actually really nice. There's a lot of good conversation around, a lot of honest conversation and reckoning about some of the the flaws and in crypto and blockchain projects in general, and some of the stuff that's been overhyped that people are coming back down to earth. And yeah, it's like we're all sobering up and having a good conversation about what's next in the crypto space. Yeah, Snowden talked. That was pretty cool, even though he wasn't able to be there in person. And I saw Jared Lanier and Stephen, oh, of course I'm forgetting his name now, the author of Snow Crash, in conversation. That was pretty epic. Yeah, lots of good. I feel like I'm forgetting some critical people.
You forgot Nat, man. Nat's on the call right
Nat.
now.
Yeah,
you can pass the mic to Nat, and I'd like to hear his experience too. He wrote a really interesting blog post that kind of highlighted from an EOS viewpoint of what he thought of the conference.
Yeah, it was great meeting Nat and hanging out. Liquid Apps in the house. Nat, are you on the mic?
Yeah, I think so. Can you guys hear me?
Dude, you sound like you're in a bathroom.
It's
feedback.
It's really loud.
Let me work on that.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was bad.
That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, Nat, and boy, a lot of other people that were smashed together from days gone by. Ash Oro was there. Yeah, just a lot of EOS OGs. I would say the sentiment overall was pretty positive, actually. Or let me put it this way. I think in the EOS community, we often are worried that there's like a just tremendous negative sentiment, but I think, frankly, the situation is more like there's a lot of neutral sentiment. The majority, I would say, of people I talked to had no particular reaction to EOS, which is good. And then, there was about a quarter of people that were pretty pumped and knew what was going on with the ENF and all the new developments and EOS. And yeah, there was another portion of people you get the eye roll from, or, and then there was an opportunity to kind of like bring them up to speed about what the latest, what's going on in the space, and maybe bring them one step closer to not being all negative Nancy about everything. So it was good. Yeah, I was overall I came away pretty optimistic about the general market sentiment, and I think it's helped that other projects have been getting humbled in various ways as well. So, are you back with us, Nat, in a state where you're not? Sound like you're in a machine room.
If he's not, I'll drop the link to his blog post in the stream chat, just so that people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I was writing a list, but I don't think I got through my whole list of people that I was able to keep up with or catch up with when I was there. Dan from OCI, are you on the call? Or anyone from OCI that was there? And we had Bob and Mark.
I wish that we had someone from OCI. I saw, I think Nat shared it with me in a DM. They've got a pretty interesting job position open on the OCI site, looking for someone
Oh,
with
yeah.
EOS, specifically EOS, smart contract development, looking to build a big metaverse app. So if anyone is looking for smart contract work, yeah, I'll look for the link here. I'll share it. Here it is. And while we're on the topic of conferences, hopefully Nat will be able to jump in. I really do want to hear what he has to say. But last week, the Trust EVM team announced that they will also be a title sponsor at the Token 2049 conference in Singapore. So, yeah, that'll be a really big deal because they are sponsoring specifically the demo stage. So you have the main stage and then you have the demo stage. The demo stage is essentially where all of the technical talks are going to happen, all of the technical demonstrations of different products coming out. And as you are aware, the EVM is a very popular stack to be building on. So there will be competitors, there will be collaborators, all giving their talks on this stage, and that particular stage is exclusively sponsored by the Trust EVM team. We decided that the Trust EVM team will be part of the EOS Village within our booth at the conference. So we'll have the EOS booth, and then we'll have a village. So we'll be communicating more of this as we move further along in the planning phases. But the idea is to have an EOS Village with representation from the Trust EVM, representation from Pomelo, representation potentially from one of the CDs who wins the next Eden election. This is all being discussed, and I look forward to sharing more details about that. But we're going to have a very large presence. Some of the guys that Brandon mentioned were at Consensus, like Ross from EOSphere, and then also Brendan from EOSphere and Rewired, Torben from Rewired. They'll all be there. The Shintai team will be there, or at least David will be there. I know that for sure. He's living in Singapore now. So we're going to have a very, very, very strong presence at Token 49. And I also just want to bring up, so the reason we're talking so much about Token 2049 is because we're going in heavy there because of the timing of everything. It'll be the week after the Mandel consensus upgrade, or even within a week of the Mandel consensus upgrade. So that's a really big deal. It'll be around the time of the Trust EVM launch. So that'll be a big deal, and will be a common talking point with a lot of the people that will be meeting with there. But it's not the only place we'll have a presence at. So a big reason we didn't go big on consensus, I had my vacation scheduled before the consensus date came out, and also Eve wasn't available, and it was just not good timing. The timing will be much better in September, but that doesn't mean it'll be the only place we'll have a presence. So I'll probably be at just throwing these conference dates. I don't have the dates in front of me, but the names out there, just in case anyone listening is also going to be there, please ping me. I would like to meet up with as many people as I can. But we'll most likely be at the Upbit Developer Conference, which is the week before Token 2049. So the initial plan is Eve and I will be flying to Seoul, South Korea, leading up to the Token 2049 event in Singapore. So figure if we're going to fly halfway across the world, or the whole way across the world, actually, that it would make sense to make the most of our time. And there happens to be an Upbit Developer Conference the week before. We're still working out the details with that, so it's not 100% confirmed, but that's the initial plan. Leading up to the Token 2049, that's in late September. In August, there's a Blockchain Futurist conference in Toronto. Planning to attend that one. There will also be a Token 2049 in London that we're looking to make a mark on. And I think those are the ones that I feel the most confident about talking about right here. But they aren't the only ones. We're also in discussions with a team that will potentially be running the conference circuit throughout Europe. Even the smaller conferences, they would kind of make sure that there's always a presence for the EOS network in all of the European conferences, both large and small. So that's all kind of being worked on. So I just wanted to bring all of this up because I see some discussions in Telegram and on Discord about Token 2049. I understand it because it's the one that we've been talking about and tweeting about. But I just want to let everyone know that it's not the only one. It's just the one that's furthest along and with the biggest level of sponsorship and the biggest presence so far. But hopefully we'll be able to make just as big of an impact at some of these other ones I mentioned. But they're just earlier in the planning phase and logistics phase.
That's great. Anyone here planning on attending some conferences in the next 6 months? Jump in here, share your thoughts.
I'll be at Futurist. I'm looking forward to that. Be good to see you there, Zach, and I think probably some others there as well. It'll be my third time attending the Futurist. It's in my neck of the woods, so handy for me. I could walk there, and looking forward. It's been a few years since there's been a chance to go to a good conference, so it'll be nice to connect with people face to face again.
We might have to organize another a scooter party like at B1 June.
That was epic. Yeah, we definitely need to do that. Unfortunately, Toronto doesn't do the scooter rentals. They don't
Really?
have that. No, you don't get. They got bicycles, but we don't got electric scooters up for, at least not the easy ones you can grab anywhere, leave anywhere.
We just got them in my city. It took a long time. We had bicycles for a while, but we finally got the electric scooters. I noticed them a few months ago.
Too much snow in Toronto. We just can't handle scooters.
Are you going to be at the Blockchain Futurist, Chris?
Yeah, I haven't really decided, but it is super close. Same as yeah. So I think that'll work out really good. Daniel will be there. You guys will be there. I'll make a point to get there.
So while you're on the mic, you guys kind of ties in. Right before I was away last week, so I actually admittedly did not listen, but I saw that you did a Futurist Twitter Spaces leading up to last week's Fireside Chat. How'd that go?
Yeah, thanks. I think it went pretty well. So we had Brock on. He uses the hashtag Futurist quite a bit, and it's about an hour. Good audience participation. I don't know if we had, the stats are kind of messed up. I thought there was only about 30 or 40 people tuned in, but apparently it said there was 80. But I was paying attention, trying to do the DJing like Steph does here, plus pay attention and ask questions. So a lot to do at once, and also look at who was tuned in. But I think it went well. Good questions. A lot of stuff about governance came up, and just the future of Web3 and then Gov3, and how do we empower people to bring the philosophies of blockchain to governance, and what can that look like. So that was cool. And it'll be something we'll try to do every 2 weeks. The next guest is to be determined, but we are hopefully, like, the big intention is to try to bring some folks from outside of the EOSIO sphere and get some outside attention brought in, and try to leverage this idea of Futurist, which is sort of blockchain agnostic, but then squeeze in bits about EOSIO when we can. So that's sort of the overarching intention. So see how it goes. But and then Brock's got lots of connections, and so hopefully we'll be able to get some other cool guests on over time. And if we can hit the cadence of every 2 weeks, then that's the goal.
Welcome, DFedj. Not sure if you want to say hi. But
Mr. Cleveland's here.
Yeah.
He is.
What's up?
How are you?
Made it. Good.
Am I the only one who doesn't know who this is?
This is Dan of OCI.
Dan the man.
Yeah.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Fireside Chat.
Yeah,
so Dan,
way through all the bots and everything to get in.
Dan, why don't you just introduce who you are, and I guess what your role is with OCI in relationship with the EOS network?
Absolutely. So I'm an account executive with OCI. Started working with Eve, Ted, and team. I believe it was in February. So my role with OCI is to ultimately oversee the commercial side of the strategy and our partnership. Had the pleasure of meeting up with Brandon at Consensus, as well as the EOS Rio team, and just had an absolutely fantastic weekend with those guys. It was great to get some FaceTime rather than just the typical video chats that we do. So looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. It was great hanging out with you and yeah, getting to meet Matt and Bob of OCI as well. You guys all made it back to your respective locations. Did you have any other highlights from Consensus that you wanted to share while we got you?
Yeah, I think that for me to speak to it, I would actually defer to Matt on this, but we were with the Hedera booth for most of the weekend, and excuse my voice, it's still coming back from the long week. A lot of a lot of chit chat and a lot of great conversations, but I think that there's a lot of exciting things happening in the space, and I'm really glad and grateful to be a part of what you guys are doing with ENF, and just really looking forward. I know we've got some really exciting things going on at OCI to help the community, and yeah, just what I can talk about and what I cannot, I'll leave that up to you guys. But it's just some very exciting things going on.
Yeah, as somebody that's relatively new to EOS, what was your perception of I don't know how people are reading EOS, or what's your take on EOS in the current situation?
Yeah, I think we talk about Brandon, you and I had talked about the comeback, right? And I think that there's a lot of great buzz around it. Really, really looking forward to the upcoming months, and being able to share what we have in the works, and what some of the things that we're bringing. I don't want to overstate anything, so I'll leave it at that. But I'm hoping to be able to share a lot more here in the upcoming weeks, and some of the things that we're working on right now. We've made some headway in certain areas. So I know we'll be talking about that this week in our meeting, and I think we'll save those news for the next Fireside Chat. And I'm sorry if I sound like I'm bouncing around a little bit here. Jumped in at the last minute, and I am gonna have to hop off in about 15 minutes. But I definitely wanted to get in and say hello and thank you guys again.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I think what he was tiptoeing around talking about is something we'll be putting out a formal communication on sometime probably mid-July, of a more long-term relationship with OCI. So we've been very public about the first body of work that they provided for the EOS network, which was the API transaction lifecycle, which they absolutely crushed ahead of schedule. And the working relationship will continue. There's some really cool features and things that they'll be developing that it is going to make both the EOS network and EOSIO protocol better, but also easier for developers also in a lot of ways, easier to deploy node infrastructure and things like that. But we'll wait for the more formal communications on that, but they are coming soon.
and thanks for letting me put you on the spot there a little bit, Dan. I feel like that's what we do to each other.
I like it, man. It makes it much more comfortable. You gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah,
Awesome.
come back with
Thanks for joining, and come back soon, I guess.
I definitely will.
Great. Anyone else want to jump in here with some thoughts or questions about OCI? It's rare for us to have these OCI members join us in the fireside, so I hope this is the beginning of a new trend.
It definitely it will be for me, and I'll definitely start roping in some other OCIers.
Excellent, love to hear it.
Hey, so this is Felix. I guess I'll provide an update. So today at 13 UTC, we had our second Eden Fractal meeting. So yeah, things are getting pretty exciting with bringing on basically the Fractally process over to Eden. We have a little community going now of members that have come and participated. Where last week we earned EOS NFTs and then Eden Respect, and so we did that again this week. And it's really exciting because now the process can be applied to really start to drive a dedicated mission and go after objectives and goals to really bring value on Eden and EOS. And the fact that we're using EOS as as part of the distribution, now it's turning into a true currency. And so it's really exciting. I'll provide a link in the stream chat for our Eden Discord, but I really highly recommend everyone come check us over. This is the Eden Discord, but we have the Eden Fractal chat room. And so I just wanted to give like a quick little update on that. And then, if anyone else who attended, I see several people in this room or in the stream chat that attended this morning, if they want to give their feedback on how that went. But it's exciting times for sure.
Awesome. Thanks for the update, Felix. Was there anyone else in the event this morning?
Yeah, I was there. It was a good time. Good to see everybody getting together. I think it's the more I participate in this idea of a weekly get together to then decide who receives funding. It's interesting. Like, I think there's something there. I mean, a lot of I know I've been apprehensive to just sort of like, what's the overarching purpose? The idea of it just being a free form where folks show up and they just are doing all different things and you sort of just figure out how to rank each other for payment seems a bit too loose personally, but I mean, that's just my view. So, but I think there's something there where if you had a deliberate intention for the organization to come together and then sort out compensation for who did basically voluntary work, because it's not a job per se. It's just you pick up where you can. But I think it is an opportunity anyway, if it was really focused on a deliberate goal and then using that to determine who's contributing the most value towards that particular really deliberate goal versus something that's so elusive, like providing value for EOS, because that can mean all sorts of things. So it's kind of tough. But anyway, really neat. I think I encourage folks to just check it out. Come just try one of them, just sit in on the meeting and just see how the flow goes. It's at a minimum a good conversation.
Yeah. And just by joining, you'll get to earn some EOS NFTs and some Eden Respect. But kind of going off of Chris's point, no, I agree. It's definitely we're still in the experimental phase. I mean, this is just the second week, but I'm really trying to push to really get organized and treat this like a weekly business meeting as well, so that we can align objectives and hold each other accountable as a team of what we would like to see and what we value, what contributions we do value moving forward, so that, I mean, basically what we're doing here on Eden and Pomelo is we're building reputation systems, and this is just an extra layer that I see this Eden Fractal doing. I think that this could definitely lead to additional fractals deploying on EOS and Eden. We've been talking a little bit on the Eden Town Hall show that Dan Singjo and I host on Sundays about integrating that with some of the proposals from the chief delegates that Michael O'Sullivan originally proposed about the Eden member services. So, ideally you have like these groups with different initiatives and objectives, whether that being focusing more on software development, NFTs, content creation. You can have different organizations, and then from those, I see fractals forming that are centered around those objectives, and then you have these teams that are meeting every single week and valuing which contributions bring the most value to whatever that objective or goal of that bubble or organization of the Eden member services is. So it's interesting. We're hoping to bring on Michael Sullivan on as a guest speaker on the Eden Town Hall show to talk more about the Eden member services, and then seeing how we can integrate that with Fractal, the Eden Fractal, really start to spark some more engagement and activity within Eden, other than outside of just our 3-month now elections, with the next election coming up. So that's really right now kind of the goal. We're just exploring, and if you guys got some ideas, we really want to encourage anyone to come in and come share them, and now's a great time to kind of share your voice and guide us where you'd like to see the Eden Fractal go.
Are there any updates? Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask if there's been any updates on all of the Eden stuff. I know Dan, so the Eden CDs, I don't know if any of them are on this call, but they made a declaration of independence, and then Dan posted something, and then there's an election next month. So are there any Eden delegates on here that feel comfortable speaking on that to kind of fill everyone else in on what's been going on?
What specifically do you mean, Zach? Like, as far as what was going on with the permission changes and all the discussion that was going on around Eden and the conclusion of that, or did I misunderstand you?
No, yeah, I was just looking for someone to kind of recap that for everyone else, because it is very nuanced, and you'd have to read a lot of Telegram messages to kind of get to the conclusion.
Yeah, I don't think there's any Eden chief delegates on right now. We've got some some alumni chief delegates, myself and Lovejoy, Jesse. I don't know.
I think they don't make them like they used to.
Crack at it, Chris.
Dedication ran dry, yeah.
You feeling up for a recap, Chris, or Dan?
Yeah, I can take a stab, I suppose. It was hard to follow. I mean, there's a lot there. It was kind of intense, I suppose. So what happened was the chief delegates came out with this Declaration of Independence. It was, I don't know. I mean, it could be perceived as strongly worded, maybe. I mean, I think I saw a comment from Dan that he felt like it was a bit hostile, or maybe it was more in reference to the chat ongoing. But so basically, and what was in that independence were two things, and maybe they shouldn't have been mixed. But one of them was a request to have the account permissions for the Genesis.Eden account, which has something around 200,000 EOS in it currently. And with those permissions, obviously, the contracts can be updated, which needs to be done to change the election date. Currently, the election date is actually set via the contract for October. But according to the bylaws, which were put forth by the previous CDs, ratified by the current CDs, say that the elections occur every 3 months, which means that the next election should be on July 9th. However, those are just words, and really the code is what dictates when the election happens. So those need to be updated, but they can't be updated without the account permissions. So that declaration included a request for those permissions, but it also included a request to anybody who had any intellectual property tied to Eden, which would be the @Eden on EOS Twitter account is the main one, the two websites that are used, the .Eden domain, name domain in EOS. So those are the only really IP of significance. And so it was just a request. It wasn't a demand like, hey, assholes, turn it over. It was nothing like that. It was just, we'd like to receive it. We're willing to even pay for it, was written there. So it wasn't that bad. But if you read it, it could come across a little strongly worded. So that was a request. Pretty straightforward, but there was some pushback, it would seem, from Dan, and it was kind of hard to follow, to be honest. He came out with a blog article talking about the risks of creating a general partnership, but that's all around more about the IP and how a DAO can't own anything. So of this article, which was fairly long, 3/4 of it was talking about that. And then the last little bit was, I guess, about the account permissions. So, and really the account permissions is the only thing that actually truly matters here. Like we need the account permissions, or they do, so they can change the code to adjust for when the future, like the next election date is supposed to be. So that's really the most important thing. And then in the public, I mean, maybe I'm rambling here, but the public Eden on EOS channel, there was a lot of back and forth, fairly heated at times about this. And then in the private members Eden Telegram channel, I think it got more hashed out. And in the end, I didn't even fully follow the resolution. It was a bit confusing. But in the end, Dan wanted the ENF or the BP. They're pushing for the BPs to weigh in, which I don't know. I mean, it seemed to me it was a bit of a, like, why do the BPs don't need to weigh in? It's like EOSIO.prods is what the owner key is set to. So yes, the BPs can do that. But do we really want the BPs to weigh in on this? Like, this is like it's like a schoolyard fight, and you're asking for the military to intervene. Like, it's not necessary. We can resolve it internally. They just have to sign it over. So I guess it ended off, and maybe someone can correct me here, but Dan wants the ENF to sign an MSIG with a memo and 10 EOS, and then have the 72-hour time lapse pass, so that is some sort of an implicit acceptance of transferring the keys from the Fractally team to the Eden chief delegates, so that they aren't liable. The Fractally team isn't liable. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's how I interpreted it. So from the EOSIO.grants account, which also has EOSIO.prods as the owner key, and with a 72-hour time delay, which is so that if the BPs want to intervene because they disagree with any transfer or transaction being made by the EOSIO.grants account, which has active keys with the ENF, that account will make a 10 EOS transfer to Eden, with the memo basically giving Fractally permission to transfer the active keys. And with that, they'll be able to transfer their active keys. It is kind of like an extra step. The active keys on the Eden account require 2 signatures out of 5 to change permissions. They could change them themselves. So it seems kind of like a liability thing, which is fine. I'm glad we worked through it. It's relatively simple thing that we'll be able to do, but it was a little bit of a process to get there. A lot of debating, but I think everything will work out, and everything seems to be on track for a July election. I think, and I'm a little unclear on this because I'm a little bit behind, but I think to call an Eden election, it has to be the smart contractor has to be updated 30 days in advance to add a new date. And now we're kind of encroaching on those 30 days. So maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But I think the end result would be the next election might just be delayed by a week or two, which shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, that 30-day delay thing is also, it's described on the Notion site for Eden, and that it's pretty clear that's about changing when you already have a scheduled election. So right now the next scheduled election is set by the bylaws and the code, and it's technically set for October, whatever, 8th or 9th or whatever it is. Okay, fine. So if you're going to have a snap election, like an election earlier than scheduled, it needs that 30-day window. But it doesn't really apply to what is a planned election. And so this is where we get into this code is law versus intent of code is law. Like, what comes first, the bylaws or the code itself as it's written? And really it's the bylaws, because we're going to update the code to match the bylaws. So the bylaws supersede the code where it applies. So right now, the next planned election is actually the one in July. So that 30-day thing, I know a few people have thrown out that argument that we can't change it, but I don't think that's appropriate, because it's just the code isn't updated, but the bylaws say the next election's on July. So it's not actually having one any earlier. But anyway, maybe that needs to be updated in the contract to have it actually work. I don't know, but not breaking the rules.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that assessment.
Really, there should be 2 date election setting functions. One of them should be like the supermajority of the CDs, and the other one should be everybody else, like all other members. Because if the CDs are changing it, it's due to the bylaws. But if like the purpose of that was to call an election earlier because like all the CDs left or something, then other members would call that. And that should probably have the 30-day thing on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think its primary purpose and why that was added in the code was just to make sure that nobody could call an election for tomorrow and then just like not tell anybody about it, or just tell specific people about it. It's about notice, and the bylaws created that notice. So
It was definitely eventful. So for those who didn't follow
Yeah.
along, Eden's like its own little set of drama within EOS. This is a very exciting place to be. We all know this is an exciting place to be, but it never ceases to be more exciting.
I didn't have the pleasure to follow along the last few days, but thanks for the update, Chris.
Yeah, and I think Nat might have sorted out his microphone if he's on and wants to chime in belatedly about consensus at all. Old music.
Sorry, I was late on the DJing there.
Nat, are you in the house?
We're gonna keep asking you every 5 minutes, so
Yeah.
Oh.
How bad is it?
it's good enough.
So it's tolerable.
roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think it's picking up my AirPods. So yeah, I mean, consensus was a lot of fun. It was good to hang out with the OGs and everything. And I specifically was out there just curious. You know, you live in this EOS bubble, being in the tech community, but I think it's always important to go out and see what else is out there, what approaches are being taken, technologies. And so yeah, I wrote just a little article sort of outlining some of the things that I saw and some benchmarks that I sort of asked my L1s about. And honestly, I mean, there were some big people that weren't there, like C or Polygon or Solana, Polkadot. They were not there. So I wasn't able to really talk with them. But as far as all the other L1s, EOS is still, I would say, pretty competitive outside of finality. Finality is severely lacking. But of course, that's the number one priority for that soon. And beyond that, I was also listening to Arhag talk about some of this improvements, and it's pretty awesome, honestly. The printing of block logs is very useful just for DevOps people like me to be able to get up and running a little easier, worry about the node consuming massive amounts of storage over time. So that's kind of cool. The transaction lifecycle is also something that's really that I can speak to on the Liquid app side, because if you're sending a transaction, you don't, a lot of the times it will not make it to the chain. It will fail for one reason or another. And so DFedj came out with the API that works very well for being able to track that lifecycle, but to get a DFedj node running is difficult, to say the least. And they don't offer the ability to spin up a light client, that transaction lifecycle aspect of it, unfortunately. So there's not some kind of option outside of trying to way around that like many have. So it's very nice to see that baked in the protocol layer. That will be very useful. And yeah, I'm very excited to see if they pick up these new primitives and be able to use it. And also, I think there was a note about EVM as well on the release that showed that EVM should be experienced as well. And also, I'm kind of curious, just because call and have other people talk shop that might be able to answer this. There was like a significant improvement in the I don't know if this was clear mentioned, significant improvement in hashing. Finding it. Basically, I think something went. It was in the neighborhood like, I don't know, went from like 50 milliseconds or microseconds per second. Verifying. Here it is. K1 signature key recovery improvements. Previously, I think that's microseconds, so 50 to 33, 85. So I assume that those have solid implications for people and that kind of stuff, because I think a lot of that. So that's cool. But yeah, that's it for me.
All right, thanks for sharing. We may have missed a few words here and there, but overall you came in good enough for us to understand. Hopefully you join us again, and maybe with a better mic setup. I'm not sure what the issue is. But yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, and welcome to the Fireside Chats. let me see here what I've got on my list of topics. Another short update I can share about the pop tokens and the end of the month raffles. So I put up all of the raffle tickets for the rest of the year. So you can find those at blend.james.io. You can't actually mint them until the last month is over, but they're all ready to go. And they're on, the current month. So the June raffle ticket will be able to be minted until 4 p.m. on July 6th. So that's going to be the first Wednesday after June. And then the July ticket is going to be able to be minted as of 5 p.m. on July 6th. And that's kind of going to be the pattern for the rest of the year. I also changed the amount of pop tokens required for a ticket to 4 instead of 5. So that way, as long as you show up every week to these Fireside Chats, you sign up for the pop token, you'll be able to enter the end of the month raffle prizes. And we're probably going to be increasing the prizes a bit as well this month. So just wanted to share a quick update about that. Some other quick updates I can share. Talking about Eden, we had the Eden China test election number 2 that went on a few days ago. Real quickly, they had 32 people sign up. There was 4 chief delegates that were voted. And the projects that are being supported by these 4 delegates include a decentralized e-commerce project for one of the chief delegates, and then Pink Meow Eating Melon project, which I'm not even sure what it is. I haven't had time to catch up on all the news, but yeah, I just wanted to quickly share the Eden China updates. I don't know if anyone here has a bit more information on that. I don't think the Asian community can't really join these firesides as it's like 3-4 a.m. out there, but still want to keep you guys posted. Another quick news I wanted to mention, if you guys noticed, Eve got quote tweeted by Charles Hoskinson yesterday. Charles was talking about a lot of wallets on the Cardano platform and how they might need some standards developed. And then Eve chimed in saying that EOS has done that recently with the Wallet Plus working group, and Charles ended up retweeting that. So it's great to see. We saw some more followers for Eve. We saw some people downloading the Wallet Plus Blue Paper. So it's good to see some, cross-blockchain community pollination going on for EOS. So good job, Eve and Zack, for getting that done yesterday.
It was cool to see the Charles Hoskinson effect, because you always look at the Cardano community and it seems nuts with the engagement they get. But because if you ever look at your own tweets, you can see how many impressions there were. So there's 2 things you could usually look at is engagement, which is your likes and retweets. But then there's also impressions, and impressions are kind of like they count every time the tweet fires on someone's screen. And because it was a quoted retweet, and because every time someone saw the Charles retweet, a quoted retweet, it counted as an impression. It was like insane, like 250,000 impressions on this tweet, one tweet, which is like 10 times more than what some of the really good ones typically get. But that's the Charles Hoskinson effect. That's what we're working towards. So kind of elevating different people within the EOS ecosystem, including Eve, as kind of like becoming that thought leader, like Charles Hoskinson or similar people from other projects. Trimbot's on the call. He's talked about it extensively, made it known. I mean, it's not anything we haven't seen before of what works in this industry. And hope I haven't even watched it myself, but yesterday there was a really good interview from BSN that did a really cool interview with Eve. wasn't so much. I guess it was about EOS a little bit, but it was a lot of very personal stuff too, to just kind of get to know who the person is. So hopefully I'll have some time this weekend to be able to catch up on content. I've been pretty swamped.
Biggest takeaway from that BSN interview: wash your clean dishes first.
Was it good?
It's not funny at all if you haven't seen it, so I guess I don't hear a lot of laughing.
Somebody's
I know it's
attention.
great. It's
That's
great.
nice.
Great interview.
I thought it was wise. Yeah, it was good.
I read the comments and the tweet replies and stuff, and it seems like it was pretty good. I just don't have an hour right now.
Yeah, it was good.
Awesome.
At least somebody was paying attention, and Chris learned something.
Funny thing is, I already did that because I worked at a restaurant, and that was always the way to go. You had to.
Of course, you need to think about it first. You need the whole point is think about it before you go ahead and do it. It applies to anything and everything, really.
Absolutely.
Thanks for jumping in here, Eve. I think last week was the first time where you were present and didn't actually say a word. I was wondering what was going on. Good to see you in here. Another quick piece of news I wanted to share is EOS Network Foundation China had a Spaces event this morning. So I'm going to share the link in the stream chat for those of you who may want to retweet it or listen to the event. I imagine it's not in English, but still good to see what's going on in other language communities of EOS.
Yeah, so there's like an entire team of, I believe, around at least 4 people on the Chinese side of the ENF. So they have their own Twitter. They have, if you click the flag in the top right of the website, they have their own
14 people.
14. Who just
14 people.
Wow. Yeah. So I interact with the managers. So there's obviously less managers than people on that squad, but they've made an awesome initiative to start doing these events. So this isn't really the first one, but it's just one we're talking about today, where they Martin acted as the host and essentially brought on guests from outside of the EOS ecosystem. So they were VC funds and other ecosystem partners from other. I don't have them in front of me. Let me pull it up. The guests were from Hello Pool, so that's a staking pool. Amber Studio, which is a development studio. 7 O'Clock Capital Partner, that's a large VC fund. Chain Feeds, I believe, is another VC fund. So this is going to be kind of a continuous thing. And we're also working on doing something similar, which is, I wanted to speak up on this earlier, but I didn't want to change the topic of what ChrisBarnes said about what Helios is trying to do with their approach of using the topic of futurists to kind of draw in eyes to kind of subliminally introduce people to EOS and EOSIO. And it's a strong... It's a great idea, and it's something that we are also looking into doing, whether directly from the ENF or by supporting other entities within the EOS ecosphere to be running these kind of events. But that's kind of what's been going on. The event was very successful. It had a couple. I don't have the exact stat in front of me because, like you said, the Twitter analytics stats are really weird because seems to show a higher number after the event than during the event. So I'm not sure if it double counts guests or not, like if they leave and come back. But it was very successful, and this wasn't the first event they've done. Like I said, they'll continue doing them. On the Chinese side also, just an update is, let me see the date. There will be, so we did a podcast with Denis, myself, and Joe Louis, that really went deep into Yield Plus and what to expect with the TVL incentive program that was outlined in the Yield Plus blue paper. But there will be an equivalent type of conversation that will happen on This will be from the Chinese ENF account, and it will be on June 23rd it'll be 8 a.m. Eastern time. That's 8 p.m. Shanghai. So they'll be doing an AMA event to go. Raven from DeFi Box, Eason from DeFi Box, and Francis from Pizza DeFi will all be guests on a panel there to do an AMA to discuss Yield Plus. To continue that conversation. And there's also another Twitter Spaces tonight at what time is it? So there's a Trust EVM event tonight also. I don't have these in front of me. It's either 9 or 10 p.m. Anyone can speak up if they have it in front of them. I guess I could look at my calendar. Anyway, yeah, that's. Jeez, nobody's speaking up. I guess I'll just pull up the Twitter. So their event will have Esteban, who's one of the community developers. It's 9 p.m. Eastern. He's one of the community developers. He's been building a product called Trust Swap, which is an EVM Solidity-based swap that he's already deployed and is running a lot of different ERC20 contracts also on the Jungle testnet on using the Trust EVM smart contracts. So he's pretty much been very active. So they have their own Telegram community also, but we announced that we just pointed to it because it's all public on the EOS Foundation GitHub that they were approved for a grant to support the trust swap. So it's mostly just continuing what he's already been doing, but he's going to talk about on this event his experience, how easy it was to be onboarded into the Trust EVM ecosystem, both in kind of community support because the community's really rallied around him and it kind of just has been motivating him even before he applied for and earned a grant. And now that he's had his grant approved, which is milestone based, by the way, so basically there's payments that aren't triggered until he meets certain milestones. That's how all of the grants work with a direct grant framework from the ENF. But I expect him to continue to keep building. And he'll talk about his experience and how easy it is to integrate with tools like Truffle and Remix and all of the goodies that are available for Solidity developers. And then also Matthias will be on the call also, who's one of the core devs for the Trust EVM team and EVM Plus working group. And he's been doing a lot of the core development, so he'll talk from his side. Obviously, OG EOS block producer from EOS Argentina. He also contributed core EOSIO code, even while Block 1 was running the repo. He was a contributor to some of that early on. So hearing some of his perspective, but it's going to be more developer focused than kind of normie focused, but there will be some normie conversation also. So that event's at 9 p.m. tonight on Twitter Spaces. So I invite you all to join. And actually, it's tomorrow night. Wow. So it is. I can't believe I messed this up. It is 9 p.m. tomorrow night, which is June 16th at 9 p.m. So I invite everyone to attend that event. I will be promoting it throughout the Discords and Telegrams, and this makes sense why I had the wrong day in my head. But that's another Twitter Spaces event. So like we said earlier with the Discord Fireside Chats, it's because we're going to keep these Fireside Chats intimate. The Discord is, Nathan James kind of said it best, Discord is very good for retention, for the closeness of our community. We're all family here. And then for the top of funnel to kind of draw awareness and draw people into the EOS ecosystem, that'll kind of be the Twitter Spaces events. And that's what you're going to see with the Trust EVM event. That's what you're seeing from the Chinese ENF team, the community team. And also you'll see more stuff coming out of the ENF also. So with Nathan James, who's on the call, our Director of Developer Relations, will be ramping up developer-focused Twitter Spaces events in the future. Also panel discussions in the future. We'll continue the YouTube content that we've been doing, pushing out the Fireside Chat highlight clips on Twitter. So we're going to continue focusing on that top of funnel through Twitter. It's been working out really well. We've been getting, every time we've done the Twitter Spaces events, we've gotten some people joining in who aren't regular faces we don't typically see. So looking forward to having a mix of both Discord and Twitter. And there's some cool events coming up and that have happened even this morning.
Taking a quick look at the chat, shout out to nsjames, Joe Louis, Tony, Nat, Trimbot out here in the voice chat actually. Joe Louis asks a question, two questions actually. First of all, he's asking if there's a Korean arm of the ENF doing similar things like Chinese spaces, etc. I don't know, Zach, if you want to.
We would love to have a partner like that. So if there are people on this call or who are listening who have the background and qualifications, so that's very important, meaning you've done this before, you have connections with media and other projects to kind of build these collaborations, please reach out to me. This is definitely something we want to do. The reason it's not as mature as with the Chinese community is just finding the right partners, really. Whereas with the Chinese community, we've got a very strong partner who has those connections and who can run media, third party and internal media. So if anyone hears this and has either a referral to a company or an organization who has that skill set, or as you personally, 100% reach out and we could have a conversation. That is something we would 100% love to ramp up.
So Joe Louis comes back with saying that he gets the feeling that from following their chat that they're underrepresented in a couple ways relative to English and Mandarin. The ENF does publish pretty much everything they do in all three languages. So I know there's been a lot of efforts done in that regards. But yeah, it would be great to see a ENF Korea team just as active as the ENF China team has been.
Would love to see that also. So the other criteria, I guess, amongst having the network and the connections and being able to get things published on the equivalent of like what you see crypto medias in the West, because obviously there's the tier ones like the CoinDesk, Cointelegraphs, but then there's a lot of tier twos, tier threes. So having the connections and experience of understanding how to get published there, because typically doesn't happen organically. That's important, but also from the translation side, having a bench team of translators who understand, who are Web3 native, so they understand the language. You can't just use automation or someone who's not crypto native to be doing these translations, but having the capacity to do them on very short turnarounds. So typically our turnaround time on translation work for typical like blog articles or also direct grant applications, we also translate those in all three languages for the board to evaluate. So having the capacity and the ability to ramp up translations with like very short turnarounds, because that's kind of one of the nuances of how we communicate as DNF is we sometimes will have something ready that we want to publish like now, but we want to be fair to the largest token holder communities out in the world, which is the Korean and Chinese community. So a lot of times we'll hold back on publishing things until we could publish them all in parallel. So the biggest example of that is the blue papers. A lot of times the English versions of the blue papers are ready 2 weeks before we're actually able to publish them, because then we got to get them translated and then formatted and branded before we're able to publish. So if anyone has those connections in the Korean markets, that would be awesome, because it's a different market. It's very unique. and we have a partner. We're happy with the partner, but they don't have the same services that we have with our Chinese partners. It's more or less translation and distribution than actual community engagement and community growth, like you see from the Chinese communities.
Joe Louis had a second question that he shared in the type chat. However, before I share your second question, Joe Louis, you can't fake that you don't have a mic anymore, because we heard you on the Yield Plus podcast last week. So I know you're able to get your voice out there. So I'd love you to join the voice chat instead of the text chat, but I'll still read your question. So his second question was regarding EOSIO Coalition meetings. Been missing being able to skim those calls. When do we think those will start publishing again? I know they've been private due to rebranding talk.
So last week, I don't think there was a call because the Taylor's guys were at Consensus. I was on vacation, and Brandon, who usually does a lot of the logging and publishing of the content, was also at Consensus. So there wasn't anything last week, so that's the reason for that. And then he's correct that the 2 weeks before that, actually, there was still just a lot of discussion around the branding, and it was a debate over a couple different names that were kind of what the final names were after a 2 or 3 month process with a marketing agency who did a lot of research around the names and the cultural differences around the world of if those names have negative connotations. And it really came down to 2 different names, and one of them had a domains that really, it didn't make financial sense to secure the domains unless we were 100% going to use them due to cost. So we're talking in the tens of thousands of dollars. And it did not make financial sense to pull the trigger on that until the names were finalized. And to make it public too early would have given the opportunity to be front run on certain assets that needed to be purchased. So that was the main reason behind the calls not being public, was just because it was originally planned that the branding stuff would be a portion of the calls. And it ended up just taking over the entire call. So there was no other discussion outside of the branding. So we weren't even able to publish like a partial meeting that just excluded the branding parts. And then, like I said, last week was Consensus. And this week we have it on the books for tomorrow. We are beyond the branding discussions at this point. So tomorrow's call will be public. It'll be about normal things. And as far as the branding, at this point, I'm not sure the timelines. Maybe Brandon can jump in if he's more up to date on the conversations, but I believe the plan is to wait until the logo and brand identity is complete, which it will be another maybe 2 or 3 weeks before making a bigger announcement. Because if we would announce it now or next week, it would just be a name and some domains and some links to where things will eventually live. But if we wait a little bit longer, we'll have the full brand identity and logo and things like that ready. That way we could do a proper press run to get third-party media coverage on this and things like that. Whereas it wouldn't really be as impactful if we would just do it with a name. And also with the market conditions over the last week, it's just probably terrible timing on that. But that's what to look forward to. Early July, I believe, is when these announcements will come out, and we are planning to do a big press run, because it was kind of like the lead up to this. We did a big press run, got published in Yahoo Finance and Bloomberg whenever we announced the $8 million of annual funding from the EOSIO Coalition for funding future development, and that's $8 million annually. We made a big deal. We did a big press run with that, got published in a lot of places. And in that press run, it said that we were in the process of a rebrand. So it was kind of like dropping a breadcrumb. So then the next piece of the story is the rebrand. And that'll be communicated when the branding's finished, which I believe is in 2 to 3 weeks. So I think that puts it early July, mid-July. But I'm not in that sub-working group that's been working on that, so I'm a little bit less familiar on the timelines. But Brandon, are those dates correct as far as you remember? I don't have the chat in front of me.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. That's pretty much what we're looking at this point. So just ask community to be patient a little bit longer while we kind of get our affairs in order and domains all set up and all the other stuff, and then we'll make a strong showing of this new brand coalition brand, and yeah, it'll be good. Summer.
Yeah, and then
July.
like this week's call, branding should probably not be on the agenda, or at least not the whole agenda. So there will be the meetings posted this week. So we'll be running with that again, and also there's other like working groups within the coalition that we don't necessarily publish everything from, and those meetings have continued. So like there's a Scalability Plus working group, for example, and they're working on some really awesome stuff, like the faster finality and things around that. So things have continued. It's just not the weekly video that we usually publish publicly, but that'll be continuing again this week.
Yep.
All right. I guess I'm willing to wait a few more weeks for this rebrand to be public, but I don't know. I don't know how much longer I can wait.
Hey.
How many people know of this name? Like 10, I guess, or less, or
I don't know. It really depends. Like I have no idea how close guarded of a secret it is. I haven't really talked to anyone about it, but
yeah, I made it all the way through consensus and didn't say it to a damn soul. So that was hard.
So that was the initial plan, though, was to have it already before consensus, because Taylor's kind of had all of their things planned, and they really wanted to make a splash with the new name and branding and things like that. But the timelines just didn't really work out as anticipated. There was more debate. It wasn't like a clear cut.
Mostly waiting on the domain to go through and not end up in a bidding war or anything like that. So it was just kind of, we got stuck having to wait.
I understand why I have to wait. As you said, I'm not happy about it. That's all I'm saying. Cool. Joe Louis says he doesn't have a mic. No problem, Joe Louis. I can send you a mic if that's all you need for you to join these Discord on the audio. And we've got some horse emojis going on, of course, with the rebrand talk.
That horse. For the
one other thing about the Korean stuff is the Eden Korea community is super engaging from what I've seen, and potentially they could serve as and eventually maybe even the Eden Chinese community could have something similar, in like the Eden Spanish. Like all of these communities could find kind of a similar role to what you see with the Chinese ENF branch. It might not be under the ENF brand or whatever, but offering similar services under some kind of contract. But the one thing that's been holding back both the Eden, let me just talk about the Eden Korea. The one thing that's been holding them back from getting a treasury transfer, like what we have with Eden on EOS, and same with the Chinese Eden community. The thing that's holding it back is the request that was made to both of them was, we will give you like an initial treasury at an amount that hasn't been decided, but it has to be a smart contract driven, like using the Eden software, not just the Eden election process, but actually smart contract driven software. And the bottleneck to that is that only the Fractal team has been familiar enough with the smart contracts and the software itself to be able to deploy that. But the Eden China team has been working on that. EOS support has also had an engineer that's been kind of documenting how this is all done. So once it becomes easier for new Edens to emerge using the Eden smart contracts, so that it's, I guess, less potential for I don't know, things to go wrong. At that point, we'll be able to empower many more Edens. That's always been the goal, is to have many Edens. And I've always been impressed with the Eden Korea community, even though they've lacked the same kind of funds as the Eden on EOS community. But I did get an update from the Eden China, both Eden China team and EOS support, that they've made a lot of progress. And also with Dan's team passing over the torch with the active keys very soon to give the CDs permissions over the main Eden on EOS accounts. Once that happens, then smart contract updates will be possible also for the Eden on EOS community, because it just wasn't possible before. Even if you had the skill set to do it, you'd have to use a fork of the code and deploy it to like a brand new account rather than on the existing Eden on EOS account that also holds the 200,000 EOS treasury. So we're getting very close to being able to empower more Edens. So I think once that happens, we'll be able to see more community empowerment from the communities in the other parts of the world who don't necessarily speak English as their first language.
That was worthy of the cheering background noise.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, and I'll just read the update I got. the update. So quick up. I'm just reading verbatim. Quick update on Eden CN development progress. Since they're still testing the smart contracts and want to be able to fix bugs quickly, it's not on an MSIG yet. Once it's running smooth, they will. One major hurdle that was in the original code is that it was designed for an anchor integration. But since most Chinese users are using wallets still based on scatter code, they needed to make some adjustments there. And he said that most of the needed adjustments are done by now. So that's a very positive update. I got that, looks like it was this morning. So it's very fresh. So making big progress.
I'm a little.
All right. Well,
I was gonna say I'm a little confused by that. Scatter does work on the Eden on EOS portal, so I'll be interested to see what they're working on.
Yeah, I've no insight to that. Yeah. Also, they did a second trial election. That was part of the update. Also, is on June 12th they did a second trial election, which I don't think I didn't see it on social media or anything. I didn't find out about that until today. I don't know if they were maybe they were testing the software like they described, and that's why he said it wasn't MSIG yet. So maybe it's just a test election of the process, but not necessarily with the treasury or kind of a multi-month term, but just to test that it worked with the Zoom or Zoom equivalent if they're using something else. But that's very positive. That's a very positive update, and I'm looking at a draft of a blog article that it looks like they'll be publishing soon that kind of recaps what they did.
So it does look like we went through all the topics that I had noted down to discuss today. Good showing once again. We were over 50 people at one point. Love to see it. Love to see the new names from people that joined us today. That's also great. At this time, if anyone wants to jump in, say hi real quick, ask a question, bring up a topic, I'd invite you to do that. maybe we need more exciting music.
Anyone have any money on Celsius? We can end this on doom and gloom if you want to talk about Three Arrow Capital or
Not
Celsius.
anymore.
Brutal.
I mean, I took out anything I had on BlockFi actually yesterday when I heard about the rumors of Three Arrows Capital going down. Definitely kind of want to step away from that whole scene for a few weeks at least. I think my withdrawal out of BlockFi is due by 8 p.m. tomorrow, so I just gotta hold another 24 hours before they too go into hodl mode or whatever.
Hold steady, lads.
Yeah.
Yeah, not holding steady.
Famous last words.
Yep.
Yeah, I did the same move. Luckily, I didn't have any on Celsius, but I took everything out of BlockFi. It just went through yesterday, so I'm out now. I'm all in self custody in my hardware wallet now.
Congrats, Daniel. Happy for you. Good luck, Norst.
I saw Celsius. They're kind of fixing up their collateral position. I think. Does anyone remember their liquidation price now? That's the crazy part about everything being on chain. Everyone's just like watching because it's all public and on chain. Their MakerDAO Vault account and watching them like adding 1,000 Bitcoin at a time collateral rather than paying off the DAI loan. And just watching their liquidation position, like their liquidation position initially was like 22K. And then as 22K got closer, they started like adding more and more and more. Last I checked, their liquidation point's like 14K, which might be safe, but might not. Who knows? But I think it'd be bad for it'll be bad for the whole industry if they get liquidated. And I don't even know what's going on with Three Arrow Capital.
So they also have an Aave vault apparently, and people are definitely targeting their liquidation price. Saw a few tweets today that exemplify the craziness of these crypto markets.
A lot of it's the liquid staking. There's just not liquidity, and I know Celsius had like 500,000 ETH that was in like just ETH 2.0 staking that's not liquid. And then even the STF that they have that's staked and supposed to be liquid, the markets are just tapped out of liquidity on Curve. So if you're like a regular person, you could still swap out at the 4% discount or whatever it is. But if you're holding like tens of millions or hundreds of millions of ETH, there's just no liquidity. There's no exit ramps right now for these large institutions to get out. And they need that Ethereum right now to recollateralize their loans, because typically if you're getting close to your liquidation point, you could just move a bunch more collateral in to protect your position. But if your collateral's locked up or you can't use your certain collaterals, you're kind of screwed. And the only thing they could really do is sell assets back into DAI and start paying off the loan, but then they're selling at a loss. So that's why Celsius, for example, that's why they froze their withdrawals, is because as soon as they open up, it's going to be a bank run. They're not going to have any collateral that could be used to protect these loans. It's been fun. I don't know if fun's the right word, but it's been interesting to watch.
Definitely interesting.
Instructive.
Definitely not fun seeing your portfolio vanish, like I'm sure we all have over the last few days and weeks. But yeah, definitely exciting time in finance to see these huge margin positions just publicly available in this vault, and then you see people just hunting to go liquidate them and bring the prices down to those levels.
For every seller, there's a buyer. So whoever's pushing for the liquidations, they're trying to buy cheap Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I just shared some pics there of some tweets I saw earlier today, saying that the vault, the AVOD, had a liquidation price of $1,034 for ETH. The market brought it down to $1,016, but it didn't last long enough for Chainlink Oracle to update. And then people squeezed the short sellers who who kind of thought that the big liquidation was coming and they put it on shorts position. They ended up getting squeezed, and the liquidation never activated. Pretty crazy stuff. And yeah, I'm happy to be mostly spot, mostly on my cold wallets, and just waiting out how long this takes to to settle up with these firms imploding. Imagine other networks than Luna are going to implode as well if these big firms are forced to liquidate their positions. 3AC, 3 Arrow Capital obviously is known to hold a lot of alt L1s, and so yeah, could definitely see some more savagery in the markets in the coming weeks. But at the same time, I'm just as confident in the long-term viability of this whole industry. So you just gotta hold on tight and make sure you survive with the bear market if that really is what we're going into. But I'm sure, like many of you here, EOS Nation was started at the start of a bear market, so we've been there, we've done that, and we're ready to do it again. It's time to build.
I saw Nathan James doing a shout out for developers being cut from Coinbase and elsewhere. So there is kind of an upside in some ways for the EOS
Their loss is our gain.
Yep. How, you get any interesting responses?
I forwarded a lot, actually. Bunch of CVs.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Speaking of building, we've got our Pomelo NFT season coming up soon. So, Steph, when is that? And we're gonna announce the roadmap for Pomelo season 3 NFTs.
Yeah, so the kickoff article is going to be published within a week, and that's going to announce the official dates for when applications are going to open, when donations are going to open, and also when the NFT promotional series is going to get underway, which should be next week.
I'm excited. Excited because it's going to be really fun to play with those NFTs. It's going to be like season 2, but better. And I'm looking forward to the art. Yeah.
We've got a few more technical features to show off. You can already try out on harvest.pomelo.io if you want to change your profile pic. You can change it to your Eden NFTs, any Pomelo NFT, or any Boyd avatar NFT. So we've got that up and running. That's going to be officially announced in the upcoming NFT article. And we've got a few more surprises for the people who decide to join us on the Season 3 NFT adventure. And as always, all the EOS that is raised through the primary sales are donated as a matching pool. So last season, we sold out our 2 drops, which has the basic ingredient and then the grand collectibles. So that same format is coming back again for this season. But if we sell out these drops this time around, we'll be raising 10,000 EOS, so twice as much EOS as last season. Although who knows exactly how much dollar amount that's going to end up being. So yeah, all right. Okay, I'm going to give it another little interlude here. If anyone else has some other topics to bring up or just wants to say hi, feel free to do so, and then we'll wrap it up.
Trimbot, I'll just jump in here real quick.
Go for it.
I've noticed that a lot of people who were very bullish on a lot of alternative to Ethereum layer 1 solutions, especially AVAX, which has been hit really hard over the last few weeks. Seems like a lot of people are sort of like, the sentiment that I'm sort of getting on Twitter is, wait, maybe Ethereum isn't necessarily the safe haven that we thought, but there's no real alternative layer 1 out there that is the safe haven. And I think that during the bull market, people sort of looked at it as Ethereum is the future. And then maybe it's AVAX, maybe it's Solana, maybe it's one of these other chains that you can have some fun on. But now that's all gone. And I think that during this bear market, the longer it goes, the better it's going to be for EOS. assuming that EOS continues to build and develop pretty fast, as it's been doing over the last 10 months for the next 10 months or so on and so forth. And so I think that everyone might want to start really amplifying the narrative that EOS is building a lot of momentum during this bear market, and it's really making a comeback, because I think it's a lot easier for people to say, wow, it's pretty interesting that they're actually building and making improvements for the next cycle during this bear market than it was to compete for attention during the bull run. So just I'd suggest that everyone sort of really starts talking about it and emphasizing it a little bit more on Twitter or other social media outlets or other conversations you have.
Totally agree. Thank you. Good point.
I think, as Daniel mentioned a little bit earlier, like, there's a lot of teams working in EOS right now that have been through this before. Because as EOS launched, we went through this. We went through some pretty rough times, and those of us that are around are just like, all right, we know what we did last time. Let's do it again, and we'll see it through to the end.
The bear market.
Most battle-hardened community by far, I think. EOS.
Yeah, we never got soft.
Never had the opportunity.
Yeah, like I didn't get too far out at sea on my yacht, you know, and lose my humbleness, you know. We had to stay humble this whole time.
Didn't lose your crypto in a boating accident.
Well, I didn't say that. Yep.
All right. So how are we going to sign off today?
I've got a question for Zack, if I could slip one in.
Yes. Share with us who you are first.
My name is Perry Sheenis.
All right, Perry, welcome to the chat.
Some of you may know me as grahappa in the chats. I'm having a nice exchange with Aaron on the EOS Telegram channel, and if some of you have been following, I'm trying to bring attention and focus, at least for my own edification, on what the state of the wallets are and the Wallet Plus effort specifically now. And what I'm learning is that Aaron is pursuing the addition of fiat on-ramps in that Wallet Plus effort. And also, what's the other item? The on-ramps and swaps. So I'm wondering, Zack, if you could speak for ENF, and maybe there's somebody here that has better information. How are we helping Aaron succeed in adding swaps and fiat on-ramps to the Wallet Plus effort? I think that by itself, if we could do those things and help him complete that effort, complete that Wallet Plus experience, so that it's secure and it's end-to-end, from securing keys to creating the account to making your first buy, your first fiat buy, and then of course on to exchanging EOS tokens. But in an effort to get that one complete, nice, smooth, self-healing as possible experience, I'm wondering how the ENF is supporting that. That's kind of my general question.
How is the ENF supporting fiat on-ramps for Anchor? So Aaron and myself had a call a couple weeks ago with MoonPay, who is a fiat on-ramp service provider, with the intentions of a direct fiat on-ramp integration into Anchor. The ENF is willing, able, and ready to fund all integration support and costs for them to do so. So there is nothing. The only bottleneck here is priorities. So as all of you know, Aaron is a very, very busy guy. He's doesn't have the largest team. They're working to grow it, but it's really just a matter of prioritizing it. all of the pieces are in place to get it done. The funding is there, and the connections are there with the invites to the dashboards and APIs from MoonPay. So everything's there. There's really the only thing holding it back is priorities. The Anchor team, they applied for the wallet SDK through the EOSIO Coalition. I don't think it's been officially approved because it hasn't. The all $2 million of Tether is still in the multi-sig account, so it hasn't been funded. But there were not any other teams to bid on that particular job. So that is one of, and I don't want to, Aaron's on the call, so I don't want to speak too much for him, but that's probably one of their priorities right now. So everything's there to make this happen. It's really just a matter of where to direct manpower and how to prioritize it. And as far as the swaps, I haven't followed that conversation. But once you have the fiat on-ramp, it's quite easy to get the swaps integrated. MoonPay themselves even have the swaps. So you could, for example, you could swap through MoonPay itself. So I don't know how the integrations work on that. But the bigger thing is the fiat on-ramps and off-ramps. And MoonPay is a great partner for that. They've already got EOS token integrated. So it's really just a matter of baking it into the client side and integrating the APIs and things like that. Now, Aaron, if I missed anything, I apologize for speaking for you, but I was very excited when he was asking that question because we've already kind of gone through this already weeks ago.
Yep. I mean, I don't think you missed anything. You included more information than I did because I didn't want to say support from the ENF or steal any potential marketing potential, I guess. But
yeah,
no,
I mean,
you've described the situation pretty accurately. And right now, it's a balancing act. We need to explore the MoonPay integration, and on the other hand, we are also pushing on this coalition proposal, so that way we can get that more significant funding to work on that stuff, and grow the team to be able to do more than what we can right now.
Well, that is great to hear that from both of you. For me, that is a top priority. It's hard for me to understand how that isn't the top priority, because that seems to be the gateway to getting new blood, new people, new money, new everything, new ideas, new developers, everybody. If we can get a nice smooth experience that is complete, it seems to be, and I thought that's where we were headed before we lost Dan and Block 1. But somehow we got lost, and so I'm really happy to hear that is on your guys' plates, and I would encourage everybody on this call to consider encouraging everybody else into making that a top priority. I really feel that strongly about it. That's everything else. I mean, everything else is dependent on it. We need people with accounts that are funded, and we need that process to be smooth and easy as possible. Nothing's going to be perfect, but we need it to be. We need it to be there. We need it to be there. So I'm glad. Thank you for that answer, Zach. I really appreciate that. And Aaron, that's awesome. That's a great way for me to end the meeting.
Not a problem. And I don't think you're going to find many people that disagree. It's been, for me personally, the topic of user experience has been kind of endless frustration for a really long time. And there's finally a lot of hope when it comes to ways to address that.
That's great. That's just
and
great.
Cheers to you, Aaron, for not getting lost on your epically long journey to ensure that EOS has an incredible wallet and user experience.
Thanks.
I use the Cove wallet. I know I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. The new one that you have, I used it this morning, and for some reason I wasn't able to complete a send. Is that it's just not ready, or? I'm
I don't know. I mean, I use it quite regularly. Like we dog food our own products. So like when I'm doing EOS transfers for the team and whatnot, like I use it and I haven't seen that. If you want to send me more details or if there was an error or maybe
Yeah.
this is one of those disappearing transactions that we were talking about earlier on the call that some of these new APIs will help. I'm not sure.
Okay, no problem. What stage would you consider it in? I think I saw it as version 0.42. So we're obviously not at release yet. But
Yeah.
how close do you think you are in terms of months?
I'm not sure when it'll be considered a version 1.0. It's definitely production ready. It just is missing a lot of features that I think some users would expect. Our goal is to reach feature parity with the Anchor desktop client, and then I think that's going to be called version 1.0. That way we can just lift all of those features out of Anchor desktop, and if you need those tools, you go to Unicove. But we don't necessarily have a timeline for that. Just like as I was mentioning earlier, it's this matter of priorities. There's not enough hands working on this type of stuff to put a real timeline on it, unfortunately.
There's money, but not hands.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, there's finally money. Yeah. So now it's a matter of finding the people with the appropriate experience and the desire to come work in this crazy industry, and make that leap.
Okay. Wow.
And while on the topic of MoonPay, I do want to shout out nsjames because Scatter actually had a MoonPay integration in like 2019. So they were way ahead of the game back then. Also, we're building an NFT marketplace back in like 2018-19. So just, I don't know.
They told us it would never work.
Big
NFTs would
hipster.
never take off.
Ahead of the curve, way ahead. I'm glad you're back.
The MoonPay guys are really cool. They're a great team. Their stuff is super professional, and their APIs are pretty damn good. So I don't expect you'll have much problems with them when you guys decide to actually integrate it.
Well, we're going through the agreement process now, and then we'll get some access and be able to check it out.
Yeah, I'm sure that process has changed significantly.
Yeah, probably. Lots more regulation.
They've grown quite a bit with the NFT boom. That was MoonPay was like one of the top onboarding tools for like normal people to come into crypto and buy NFTs.
They've been doing really good in like the space as a whole, not necessarily EOS or Ethereum or anything like that. Just as a whole, they've been doing fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask a follow-up on that. As long as we're talking about MoonPay, it's kind of it's an obvious question, but I'm not sure why it hasn't been asked or suggested, even in my own mind. But why isn't Binance an option? They're a block producer.
Like an option. They don't offer that kind of service. Just a whole,
They don't offer any kind of API to integrate or any.
They do. I actually looked into this recently. They do, but it's behind an account API, meaning that you as a user would have to have an account. They will not let a service run it in the way that MoonPay would allow you to. For KYC reasons, MoonPay actually has some KYC brick walls, so you as a user will be logging into KYC through, let's say, an embedded API, so an embedded what's called iframe on your application, and then they'll deal with keeping you as a customer. Whereas Binance doesn't really have that, and as far as I can tell, most of these don't have that. KuCoin has a service like that. Bitfinex has a service like that, but they don't really provide those types of services. It's more internal for them. And
So
then some kind of.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No,
all of the exchanges, so Binance and the exchanges Nathan just mentioned, none of them allow U.S. customers either, whereas MoonPay would accept U.S. customers. So it's not really apples to apples when you bring up Binance, for example. But there are other services similar to MoonPay. very recently, Atomic Hub announced a partnership with a product called Banksa, which I'm not really familiar with, but it's a fiat to NFT payment service. So that would be more comparable to MoonPay than something like Binance. But MoonPay is like the market leader, though. So,
But doesn't Binance have a Binance.us?
it's not. They don't have parity of services, and like Nathan said, it's they just have a different system. MoonPay is the best. So I don't know how else to explain it. I'm not as familiar with all of the other services. I just respect people's opinions who do understand this market better than I, such as what Nathan just shared. And MoonPay is the absolute best partner for this.
I guess the general question is, we've got lots of exchanges that are block producers. You know, are any of them candidates for that? I have no idea. It's just a question, just a general question.
They're mostly infrastructure providers. They have to run full nodes for their wallet systems for their exchange. They don't trust third parties to run their nodes for them. So the cost is already baked in. They have to run a node no matter what. So they don't even rely on block rewards for their business model. Their business model is essentially the exchange product. So that's why you see a lot of exchanges acting as nodes on other networks. I mean, Binance is a top node on Tron. They're a top Tezos baker. They're a top node on Polkadot. So it's not uncommon to see Binance at the very top of any proof of stake network as far as node operations. And same with Coinbase. Coinbase is also a top baker on Tezos, for example. Like I think like number 3. Solana is the same way. You're gonna, if you look at the top 20 or so, like on a Solana block explorer, they actually like compress down. Like you have to like click to expand the top 20 or so nodes, because they kind of hide them, because they want you to stake your tokens to all of the smaller nodes. But it's very typical for staking pools and exchange operators to be in those positions. And the reason is because it's part of their business model already. They have no additional costs to basically the equivalent of reg produce on EOS. It's basically flipping a switch that says, okay, now I'm a block producer, compared to just running a node for your own like services and wallets or dApps or whatever.
And I think a good way to look at these are that the exchanges that we have as BPs they're exchanges. They're meant for people to do trading specifically. And there are some fiat on-ramps, but those companies don't focus on like merchant integration, which is kind of what we're doing with services like MoonPay. And MoonPay probably uses the Binances and the Coinbases and all of this other things and aggregates it into a separate service. So it's almost like the exchanges we have are kind of the layer 1, and they don't really offer the services that we would need to make it easy for consumers. But the layer 2s that are built on top of the layer 1s, those are the ones that are focused on like, okay, let's make a widget that anybody can put into their application to easily onboard into crypto. And then they leverage the layer 1 to do that. So maybe in the future, we'll see some exchanges offering things similar to MoonPay. I know Coinbase has kind of experimented with that, with some sort of e-commerce solution. But honestly, like that, the one that Coinbase has isn't all that great and wouldn't really fit the situations we're looking to solve, which is getting people a wallet, getting the first few tokens, and getting them using the network and trying this stuff out.
Do you have any idea right now, Aaron, how the KYC will work with your wallet? Are you envisioning that?
The KYC stuff is all handled by MoonPay. So I know that it's supposed to be fairly quick for the end user. I don't know the exact information the user needs to provide, and it's probably different per country or something like that.
There's also a leeway there of I think
Yeah.
$150 or something.
Yeah, I just pulled up my notes. So there's no KYC below $150. The KYC process is a 45-second approval, requires a selfie and a picture of your ID, and it's approved within 45 seconds. And it's also linked to your email address, so that if you KYC with your Ethereum account but use the same email login, you don't have to KYC again for EOS. And if anyone really had a problem with KYC and they wanted to do a bunch of under $150 transactions, they could do so with a bunch of email addresses, I guess, but they probably have other protections in place, like IPs and things like that. But for small like retail users, like if you're just trying to onboard regular people, they're probably not like to buy an NFT or play a game. If you want to reach mass scale, the majority of your users are probably going to be spending less than $150. But then you have different tiers of players in most games where only a small percentage of the players are spending like the thousands of dollars on their in-game items. But they make up the majority of the market share, and that's with World of Warcraft and pretty much every game where there's like an OTC like economy. It's always a very small percentage of most gamers play for free. Then there's another percentage that they'll spend some money, but not that much. And then there's another percentage of gamers, which is like 5%, that just spend 95% of all of the capital in the in-game economies.
So, Aaron, does that $150 sub $150 experience sound like one that could happen in wallet, completely in wallet, and not have to dispatch the user out to MoonPay to do their own KYC? Is that something that can happen in the wallet itself? Is that what?
Yes, yeah, that's the way that it will likely be implemented. And right now we're thinking about implementing it in Unicode as just kind of the primary interface for that. I don't know if we want to integrate it 3 times into our 3 versions of Anchor. So that'll be where we start most likely. And it will, I guess this is kind of future plans. And if we can make this relationship successful with MoonPay, I'd really like to get to the point where we can offer users one purchase for multiple things that are EOS specific. Right now, you're going to have to purchase an account from Graymass or from wherever else, and that's going to be one step. And then there's going to be a separate independent step that you're going to have to buy tokens. So at some point in the future, I'd really like to explore bundling accounts with token purchases somehow.
Yes.
And potentially going even further and bundling it with network resources. So that way you are also paying X amount of money, whether it's reoccurring or one time, and then you get CPU, net, and RAM on top of that. That'll just create one purchase, get some tokens, an account, and resources, and you can just play whatever game or participate in whatever platform you want to be in. But that is a longer term goal and isn't going to be what we see immediately.
Well, it sounds right. It sounds right. And the key storage experience, how are you planning just having people just get out paper and pencil or copy and paste somewhere else, or are you going to offer them some kind of online storage integration?
Right now, what we do in all of the accounts that get created through Anchor is we have what's called an owner key certificate, which is a sheet of paper that you can either save somewhere or print that contains the information about your key. It is your owner key, and you can use it to recover your account. And then after that sheet is either saved or printed somewhere, we remove it from your device, and that is your backup. So like if you have a Ledger device and you write your 24 words on that sheet, it's a kind of similar approach, except maybe just a little bit easier. Eventually, there are things in the Wallet Plus Blue Paper that we did talk about doing remote versions of that are still trustless, where one entity can't just like take your stuff and steal it. It's non-custodial in that sense, and that nobody's going to have control but you. But those are protocols that need to be developed, like kind of independent of anything like an Anchor, and then an Anchor will integrate that once they exist. So we definitely need people to build those types of things. There's been some chatter in Discord from another team in the Wallet SDK channel who's been expressing interest in building that. And I'm hopeful that maybe they'll be able to be the team that, helps build that protocol out for all of us to use.
Okay. Well, it sounds good. It sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of work to get there, but if we can get all of this done, it should improve the user experience a lot and make it a lot easier. So right now it's far too hard.
What kind of developers
All
are you
right,
guys
thanks.
hiring for
Right now, we're looking for two different kinds. One is going to be to focus on more web technologies. And that would be SDKs and parts of Anchor. I guess there's three kinds. The second would be mobile developers that are familiar to help us build the iOS version and the Android versions of Anchor. And then the third is Golang developers. Our history solution, Robo, is developed in Golang, and it's been done by the members of the team that have just found free time, and we really need somebody to help us work on it full time. So that's more of a back-end position, but I think in general, those are the three kinds of developers that we're seeking out right now. We're talking with two guys tomorrow. We have another guy that we may be talking to next week. Lots of conversations going on, and just trying to find people that have the right skill sets to be able to jump in and work on this kind of stuff.
Cool. Good to know.
All right, thanks Perry for jumping on with us here today and asking your question. Much appreciated. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. So what's our sign off? Is it Happy Birthday EOS or Happy Anniversary EOS? What do you guys think?
We could just sing the whole birthday song if you want.
Yeah, there you
go.
I'm
definitely not leading that. If someone else wants to lead that, go for it. I invite you on stage. I'm not going to do that.
We want to get more.
I want to hear the original disco music. Remember that? You guys remember the disco music that was played
during Genesis launch?
The EOS Go group with Bluebird or Blue Jay. I'm not sure. Right?
Blue Jay and Kevin.
Blue Jay and Kevin, they broke out with disco music.
I remember. I think I remember the clip from that. I'm not sure I remember the audio.
I know there's a GIF out there of Kevin dancing to some song, but I can't remember.
Yeah, out there.
I can't remember the song or anything though.
No, there's no remembering the song. It was silly good.
All right, cool. So I think we'll go with Happy Birthday EOS for today. So thanks for joining, everyone. We still have 44 people in the chat, over 2 hours. Love it. Love the dedication. Love seeing the familiar faces every week. New faces, especially all the devs that joined us today. That was very nice. Hope to see that in the future as well. And yeah, so on that note, I hope you guys have a good evening and happy birthday, EOS.
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 All right. Talk to you next week.
Anymore.